Hey guys, my name is Anu Jean Baptiste, or JB for short, and I really don't actually know what I'm going to talk about in this video. I was actually going to start this series in this video a couple days ago, but I was using Photo Booth on my Mac, and because I've never done anything like this before, and I kept trying to record, and then didn't realize Photo Booth can't save videos longer than, I don't know, 5 minutes or something like that. And then I just lost all the momentum. And I think I was probably just going to ban this whole thing, which is essentially symptomatic of the subject I guess I really wanted to make this channel about, which is just ADHD. I think the working title for this is On the Destruction of ADHD, which might not make sense for anyone unless you happen to be in philosophy, specifically Heidegger, and have read Being in Time and or his phenomenology or Introduction to Phenomenology, where I think destruction is just like another word for deconstruction, or I forget the whole etymological kind of background of it, but essentially just kind of rethinking ADHD. It's been over the past couple of years that, I don't know, I've just been really heavily researching ADHD and neurodivergency. I've got a background with neurodivergency. Although kind of maybe a little unorthodox maybe, I had a whole outline for things I wanted to talk about, and the first thing being a story about being prescribed meds when I was in the Army. So yeah, I guess I'll start there. Try to do what I was planning to do a couple days ago. So just a little intro for me. I used to be in the military. I was in the Army when I was originally joined before I graduated high school for the reserves. I joined the reserves to help pay for school for some boring desk job. 42 Foxtrot. If you're in the Army, you'll know that. It's basically an admin resource person who can use the computer. But I joined to pay for going to school. I was going to go be a computer science major at Augusta University back when it was called Augusta State University. Then it changed to, I think, Georgia Regents University, and then Augusta University. But anyways, I was a CS major, broke, poor, decided to, and got bored of my intro to Java class, which I already took Java in high school. I'm just thinking out loud right now, but this whole video I'm doing, if I actually put it out, is going to be heavily rambling all over the place, but I guess that'll be just a display of ADHD. But yeah, I had taken all these computer programming classes, including C++ and Java in high school, and then I took an intro to Java class, barely went to my classes, just wrote my code at home, and would just send it in, and was getting bored of programming, even though I loved it in high school and wanted to be a game programmer. And somewhere in there, I think I started falling in love with literature, poetry, in high school, and for some reason the idea came into my mind to, I guess when I was deciding to part ways with my CS major. Oh yeah. Also, the broke part was I don't think the Army was paying for my school for some reason. I kept having my classes dropped, and it was so frustrating. It was this whole time I was in boot camp for 2 months, I was just looking forward to going to school and having everything taken care of. And then you come back and you're and for some reason, some dumbass reason, I thought my recruiter was helping with school. I don't know. Of course, my mother wasn't helping with that, and I don't know. But I probably also didn't talk about school with her that's I feel like that's a typical thing for, you know, individuals who are neurodivergent or ADHD or whatever, coming from like marginalized communities. Me specifically being like a first generation kid from a very, very dysfunctional family where college wasn't talked about. So like the idea of staying put in what is, you know, at least back then, was a great field, wasn't as hyped up as it has been over the past, I don't know what time span, but you know, there's been a good set of years where like everyone was saying, go into CS, and back then it wasn't really hyped up like that, but everyone kind of knew that being a computer programmer or engineer or whatever is a good job. I just watched, I think G4 a lot as a teenager and wanted to be, you know, like video games and wanted to program video games. So much so that like, I think I programmed, I think it was like for my C++2 class, I programmed a text-based RPG game that was pretty much part of the storyline for Final Fantasy IX, and because I loved Final Fantasy IX. I loved Final Fantasy period, up to like 10 really. But yeah, like things like that, which that was like part of my senior project. I did my senior project, I coded, and that's my cat right there if you hear sounds like that in the background. Some fucking rolly ball that he shredded the yarn off of. But yeah, part of my senior project, I coded a tic-tac-toe replication game in a TI-83 Plus calculator with the native basic language in it. And then also, yeah, I had the text-based RPG game that was in C++, and I used, it wasn't just top-down methodology, which you learn for the most part in like the first class, the first semester, 2 semesters or something like that. But, you know, I used programmed objects, which was pretty cool, to do certain things like the menu bars. I can't remember what else. But, and then I also had a website that I used JavaScript on it back before JavaScript was like used in the heavy ways it's used now. But yeah, that's just all to show that like I was definitely in love with computer programming back then, but by the time I was having my classes dropped and re-put back in or whatever, I remember like, I think it was a calculus class I walked out of. I think I've told the story like a million times online. But yeah, I decided like, I'm done with this. I'd rather just like go and have experiences and go on adventures that could fuel some writing. You know, I think I was reading Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms for the first time at the time. And I was like, yeah, let me go active duty. Let me do something cool. You know, hey, I speak French, some Creole. Maybe I could do something with language. And then, yeah, went right back to my recruiter, was like, I want to get a cool job. And the assholes at the recruiter shop were like, yeah, you could be an MP or infantry or something like that. And like, dumbasses there didn't know any like bigger horizon of jobs, which I ended up finding. I went to MEPS to go active duty. I was like, I just want a job with a language. They were like, here's this weird ass job, like 35 whiskey, signals intelligence / electronic warfare, and they made me take I had to leave and come back. I had to take a D-Lab, something that's called the D-Lab, which is a Defense Language Aptitude Battery Test. And the weirdest fucking test in the world, man. You wanna hang out? My screen just went off. Hopefully I didn't fuck up the video. But yeah, the D-Lab, which is like the weirdest exam like you'll ever take. Like the first half is like a listening portion where they just make up a fake language and they just give you a set of rules. Like I think it's one rule at a time, and you're supposed to like be able to listen to transcripts and be able to like answer these multiple choice questions, and they just keep adding layers of rules after each question. And yeah, and then the second portion, it's a pictorial and or like reading. I can't remember. Like I don't think anyone ever remembers the second portion of the D-Lab. All I ever remember, and most people ever remember, is there's a question with a fucking guy with a duck for like duck head. I don't know. But yeah, I guess it's supposed to be some kind of way to test your aptitude for learning new weird shit, I guess. But yeah, I guess I passed it well enough to get Arabic, which I didn't know immediately. It's a weird experience because like you pass it, you get a score. They tell you like, all right, you're good, and then like they told me like, oh okay, you're getting a $40,000 enlistment bonus, which was pretty dope because I just came at the right time, like which is funny. I mean, maybe not, but I remember I'd talk with other crypto linguists later on, and be like, some guys would be like, yeah, I got 10,000, I got 20,000. I think I met one guy who was like, I didn't get a bonus at all. Yeah, but yeah, I guess somewhere in there I had to leave, come back, switch over to active duty, swear in or whatever, and then like I had to wait at the some kind of like I had to like hang out in South Carolina at the this like unit that's next to where MEPS is, or next to where like the reception battalion or whatever the fuck, before you go to boot camp. I had to wait there for like a month or so for my top secret clearance, and which I thought that was gonna be there forever because there was guys there for like months, and like one guy was there for like at least a year. I guess like it takes a long time. I was only like 18, 19, so like my record was clean. Well, to the government at least. But yeah, I waited for like about a month, and then on a random day while like doing some kind of like duty, where like me and some other guy were driving new recruits to like the hospital or the clinic. So yeah, somebody like told me, yeah, you got your language, it's Arabic, you're flying off like today or tomorrow or something like that. Yeah, I think I was flying off that day, which was crazy. Which was funny because like I had been learning German because I didn't know what language I was gonna get, so I was just like using the free Rosetta Stone application on the like military email website thing, because I was like, yeah, maybe I'll get German or something like that. Like that'd be cool. So I learned a good bit of German, and then I got told I got Arabic, and then I flew off to Monterey, California, where I thought it would be warm as fuck, and it was foggy and chilly as hell, but you know, it was Cali, it was a different place. I was 19. Here was a weird base with like dudes and dudettes from all different branches. Like all the branches were there, and it was like the most happiest looking place that I've ever seen, or I could imagine that like you could be at in the military. It's essentially like a college, but you're in the military, so you're like it's a pretty wild place because like for Arabic, it's like a year and a half course where you got classes Monday through Friday, like at least 8 hours a day. You're just fucking studying Arabic, cramming that shit in your brain, watching Al Jazeera and reading newspapers, whatever. Just like consuming Arabic through a fire hydrant, as people would say, which is pretty crazy if you've never had an experience learning a language like Arabic. But yeah, did that, and that was a very cool beginning to a not so long journey, but like, I think that contract was for 5 years. I did language school for a year and a half, aced it, flew right now. The first couple months, I was like, it was a shit show. I was away from home as like a 19-year-old. Actually, it was funny because like when you get there, there's the school's kind of split up between 2 or 3 camps. First it's the guys and everyone who's just coming straight from boot camp. Then there's the camp of people who are like prior enlisted, prior service. And my old reserve recruiter like told me, yeah, when you get there, say your prior service or something like that. And I was like, all right, whatever. So ever since I was at that MEPS unit waiting for my TS clearance, investigation or whatever, I always was been saying, yeah, I'm prior service, because I was in the reserves. Even though I didn't have my MOS, which is like your job code or your job, whatever, because I didn't, when I was in the reserves, I just went to boot camp. I was supposed to come back for school. And then the next year, I was supposed to go to the dumbass 2-month course. But instead of doing that 2-month course, course like I just said, switched over essentially for a 2-year pipeline. But yeah, when I got to the Defense Languages 2, or DLI, I was like, yeah, I'm prior service. I got my, I think I was a PFC. I got my PFC rank. I'm top shit, compared to these kids straight from boot camp. And then, eventually after weeks or whatever, a month or so of partying like a frat boy with the other prior service guys, it was truly a college. That was, yeah. I mean, there was more college experiences there, but it was crazier, the shenanigans I was getting into. Until my platoon sergeant was looked at my ERB, or my document that has all my awards or whatever. He's like, hey man, it doesn't have a job code on your MOS. I was like, interesting. And then, and I was already in trouble too for being late to formation, because I was just, I was really indulging in being away from home and being a young 19-year-old, of course, and partying. But yeah, they found out that I was not true prior service, and then put me in the barracks with the other kids from boot camp. And then of course more shenanigans ensued while I was there, but had a blast. Went off to finish the course. Took the at the end of the course you have to take a 6-hour exam plus a oral proficiency interview. The 6-hour exam is broken up into 2 days. One for a 3-hour exam for listening, 3-hour exam for reading, and then your oral proficiency interview, which for cryptolinguists is not that heavily important. It's much more important for, I guess, humaniters or human intelligence guys. But me being someone who's already had a knack for language like French, I always strived during language school to speak Arabic well. I wanna أتكلم بالعربي. I wanna أتكلم بالعربي. But Um, yeah, I did pretty well there, and it was mostly because I was getting in trouble a lot. Honestly, like that's the truth of the matter. Because like it was a shit show. I was just like falling asleep in class, not like just typical, I guess maybe ADHD shit, or just typical kind of just degenerate, like being away from home, not knowing structure, not really knowing how to like you know pay pay attention to what I need to be doing versus like how to like reserve time for fun. But whenever I got in trouble, I get like on I think it's called phase 4 or something where you can't leave the barracks or can't. Yeah, you can only wear your uniform around, and so I'd just be in the barracks rooms, just like studying and doing homework, and like having these like imaginary conversations, like as if I were on like one of those Arabic talk shows on Al Jazeera, just kind of like waving my finger, like I don't know if that's like a real thing, but like there's a lot of Arabs who like wag their fingers while they're talking. So I'd get in that vibe where I'd just be in my barracks room, just like having these like imaginary conversations, which is kind of what I had to do for French because I didn't like learn. With French, I had to I learned some from family, but I had to learn a lot more on my own. With French in high school, I would just kind of like, I took classes. Actually, the first French class I took, I completely failed. I completely failed. My French teacher fucking hated me. She was like, it was just like, it's a shame that like you don't know French. Being Haitian, like I told her my mom knows French, and I would just act as if I had a chip on my shoulder about it. I don't know. But then and this is a constant refrain of like, but I redid French, and I like studied the whole French book, and then like I was like a star, at least in like French 1 and French 2. By French 3 I was still good, but I was engaging more with my mom and talking with my family in French. And then like I would just come home and like spend hours just like watching French shows and French movies, and like I don't know, it just became like a purpose. Besides like the other random shit I was doing, like by the time I got like a computer or like the internet, I think it was around my junior or senior year. I would just come home and like spend hours downloading music off like LimeWire, SoulSeek, chatting with friends on AOL Instant Messenger, and like just watching and consuming a lot of like French shit, just because it excited me to like get better at this language that my family should have taught. I mean, I really should have learned more Creole, which I knew Creole kind of because I've been around it. Haitians speak way more Creole, but like I used to, I speak French too. Like I used to be woken up at like 3 or 4 in the morning because my mom would be just like wailing in French or singing French songs or French prayers, because they all read. She was very Christian. She was originally a nun in training before she came to America. My grandmother was like a high up in like some Catholic church thing. Damn, why does my laptop keep going on? I don't even know how to fix that. But yeah, there was always French around, but Creole, of course, is like the language of Haitians. And so like I knew some Creole, but much more like I guess my entryway into kind of embracing somewhat of a culture of being Haitian was like just let me like download as much French in my brain. Plus I was digging this French girl by the time like junior senior year. Her name's Marlene, which we ended up like dating for like a little bit. But I said the L word in a poem to her, and that scared her. I wrote this poem while I was in ISS. So we would pass these notes to each other or whatever, and I think I wrote a poem or wrote a note, and I was like, I love you at the end, and that scared her off. And I learned words really matter. But yeah, I learned French. Um, and yes, same kind of vibe with C++. And I always tell this story too. Everything in this video is gonna be tangents, but I remember like C++, it's the same thing as with Arabic. I was everything. I was a shit show. Like the first couple months, I didn't know what the fuck we were doing. I chose the class because like I was like, yeah, programming would be cool. Like no kind of like insight into like CS is like going to be like one of the biggest fields or industries, and so like no, yeah, I just was like, yeah, programming, whatever. But like the first months, I was like, what the fuck are we doing in this class? Like what? And it was like the most basic. I remember like it was the most basic programs, but I didn't like I don't know. And I'd love to hear people's perspective on this. Like there's something weird where like I feel like as an ADHD person, you're capable of like learning so much, but like those first like moments of like experiencing whatever world you're newly in, like the patterns don't like align, like you know. And I think it's I know why, because like you're always kind of like not on even ground. Like there's always something. Having fun with that ball today, aren't you? You're never like really on even ground when you like come into a new world. It's just kind of like it's very well no, I guess it's like a kind of a misuse of this term, but like you know Heidegger has and I'll always reference Heidegger for some reason, but Heidegger has you know the concept of thrownness in being in time. It's very very like profound concept of like you know we're always thrown into our existence is thrown in a way where you know all the facts of our lives, all the concrete facts like my skin color or race or whatever, the fact that I'm American or first generation Haitian, these are things that kind of are thrown at me or I'm thrown into it. But I kind of feel like I want to use that term "thrown" for ADHD. And this is like even you could be like, yeah, I know I'm going to go into this world. I'm going to join the military. I'm going to take this programming class. But for some reason, like my experience, like I'm just never the first days, weeks, months, whatever. I'm just like my brain is stuck, like still trying to figure out why the fuck I'm even here. Like why the fuck am I here? Yeah. But let's get back to it. Yeah, first couple months of C++, I didn't know what the hell. I was always cheating from like for my assignments, like just looking over at other people's computers, trying to like replicate how they were coding. I don't think maybe I missed or maybe I just zoned the fuck out. And I guess that's it also. You know, zoning out, just like not like even if you're excited about something, just like I'm pretty sure it was not there. I was probably playing like Minesweeper when like our teacher like would, and our teacher was hilarious. She was like the teacher for all the computer classes, and she would call me Henry. She would like yell. My first name is Henri. Hopefully I said my name at the beginning of this, but she was like this like I'm pretty sure she was mulatto. She was black, but she looked white as fuck. She looked white as hell. Which she looked like my father and actually like me. But as a kid, before I moved to Hawaii, I looked mulatto, like straight white. But she would just yell, "Henry, what you doing?" Like I don't think it started out like that, but like she knew I was a troublemaker in some ways. And she would I was always fucking around. I was like using the computer to like do crazy shit. Either like not the craziest shit. I'd either like find mirror sites to fucking be able to use MySpace because I didn't have the internet at home and a computer that had the internet at home, or putting fake operating systems on computer. I used to actually get banned from the library because like me and my friends would put these we'd put like this fake operating system called Windows RRG, which is Windows really really gay. And then I would get suspended from the library for like a year. And then the security cop would be like, "There goes them hacker boys." But yeah. But yeah, like first couple months of C++, I remember like not understanding what the hell is going on until like the semester exam, like or final or whatever, and like in typical fashion was like, all right, let me just read the whole textbook from front to back, which was amazing. Oh my god, like the first parts of the book are like on the history of programming, talking about machine code, COBOL, all these things, leading up to C++, like punch cards, and like then you get into the rudiments of just like coding in general. And this was like .NET framework, so like, you're starting out with like console semicolon colon right line parentheses hello world. You're making your hello world, and then like you're making simple things that are like doing simple basic mathematical arithmetic operations like loops and shit like that, or I don't know, I can't remember all what we were doing, but I read that like textbook, it was thick as hell. It was like a 2/3 or big textbook, 2/3 of like a phone, or like kind of almost like a phone book essentially. But like I read it all the way through, and like by the time I read it all the way through, I was like so excited about programming. I was like, oh man, I want to like I'm reading about objects, or like you learn about like top-down methodology, and then you get into objects, and like somehow it seems so sexy, at least the way they described it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a programmer, and yeah, like I aced my exam, and it's just like where I'm pretty sure for her, like my teacher's like, where the hell was this whole time, but yeah, it just takes time. It takes time for ADHD individuals to kind of like either see the patterns or at least come to an even ground, or be settled into that world that you're learning, experiencing, working in, and then like or like really, I guess that's really just the reason I read that whole book was because like the pressure and the threat of failing that class, and yeah, getting in trouble with my mom and getting my fucking ass beat the fuck up. But still, it takes time for someone to kind of like be like, all right, I get what's going on. Like, my brain's still buzzing, firing off about random crap. As a teenage boy, you're like, as a first-gen Haitian, immigrant kid, black in the South, like not really understanding, not really having a normal functional family, which I won't go into right now, but like not, just not really being set up for success by my parents or whatever, and like, these teachers don't give a fuck, like if I'm not doing well, they're just like whatever, but it takes time to get to that point, like there, to bring it back to the DLI part of the story. Yeah, it took time, and I guess it took time, but it was also because like the punishment of being in trouble. So I don't know. There's some kind of interplay between like the threat of whatever trouble and like having at least some time to kind of like go like, okay, this is how I, put my walk forward in this world, but yeah, somewhere in at a DLI, while being in trouble, I would just, I started really getting Arabic. It started really coming to me. By the time I, take my exam, which, holy shit, I just remembered. Man, that exam was terrible because, at least, I for some reason got like these crazy hiccups that wouldn't go away. It was insane. Like I had these hiccups that wouldn't go away, and I was like, what the fuck? It was so bad that like I remember during the listening portion of the exam, there was like this naval petty officer who's like this like Puerto Rican guy, and like I just kept hiccuping, and I could see this motherfucker wanted to kill me. He'd just be like, like the most important exam we're taking through that whole, which we're taking a million exams up to that point, but this is like the exam, it's like, and the listening portion, of course, is like the hardest part, compared to like reading, where you have more time to kind of digest the questions and kind of, choose your answers, or choose your answer, whatever. But like, yeah, I remember just keep hiccuping, and it was just like, and that kept going through the reading portion too. I don't know how I ended up truly stopping it. I forget, but it went away. I wonder if it was like a nervous, kind of anxious thing, which I haven't had since. I don't know, like I've never had that again. I think I've had one time where like I've had times where like, yeah, the hiccuping lasted for like maybe 10 minutes at tops, but like never like days. But yeah, passed that exam, got a 2+2+, which is great. Like, definitely compared to like either, people would fail, or get what's called rolled back, or get kicked out of DLI, and there was always a thing where like you were always checking which exams you passed or failed, because if you failed I think 3 subjects in a row with these exams, which I think there's exams for like each month on top of the test that we normally take or whatever. But like, like it was that there was a lot of attrition. There was, by the time you get to these the DLPT, which this is even actually, man, I'm just having flashbacks. When I actually went to DLI, they introduced a new version of the DLPT, Defense Language Proficiency Test. They introduced the DLPT 5, which I remember like all my heroes, or all the guys who were like about to graduate. These guys are like rock stars. They're like, a lot of these guys in my barracks are smart as hell with Arabic. This is the most like slimiest shit ever. They made them take the new form of the exam, which was like way more intense than like the exam that like the DLPT 4, and like pretty much almost all of them failed. And it was like the saddest thing ever. But it was kind of weird because they had to stay back collectively and like have a couple months to like study up for the exam, and then I think most of them passed or whatever, or they got rolled back into our class. But so that was the threat the whole time. It was like, these guys are smart. They've been like telling us like how to like maneuver through this whole course, and then they fail, and it's like, Jesus Christ, what have we signed up for? But by the time like I got to the end, passed, I was not happy with the fact that I didn't get as high on my oral proficiency interview, even though like I was a great speaker. And the reason why, and I hate this, by the time you're at the end of that course, like we have these conversations on high level subjects. Like we're talking about global warming and globalization, and like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We're like literally, like we're on like, I would have these talks, these imaginary talks, like trying to solve these big problems in like talking in Arabic, and like practicing these conversations in class, and like even having these like I remember randomly we would have these things where like these other professors would like make us do a mock kind of interview, and like and I would just be fucking like throwing out some like fancy ass Arabic like that I'd be finding in the in a dictionary, like huge dictionary. Like where's my old Hans Bear dictionary? Here's one of my old dictionaries. It's the infamous green Hans Ver Arabic to English dictionary. It was, I guess, edited or put together by, or no, it wasn't edited by Hans Wehr, but it was essentially the root system, the measure system, the linguistic measure system that they used throughout it. This is the Hans Wehr, right? Was like there's a measure system. It's like 10 measures where it's like which if you look at the chart for it, it's like this kind of morphological kind of chart system for how Arabic changes. So like measure 1, let's say fa'ala, to do. You have fa'ala. Man, I'm kind of forgetting. Fa'ala. I forget measure 3, tafal. And then measure 10, which is like istafal, and that's how every like 3-letter root system should morphologically change. Plus, like different, I guess, different forms of the word, But back to the interview thing or whatever, the practice interviews, like when I was like in trouble and in the barracks, I'd be like, of course, like just studying this, like this was like reading through this dictionary like it was a novel, and like finding like almost archaic or very antiquated or just like very truly like you are a speaker of Arabic, high level speaker of Arabic, like words that kind of conveyed that kind of or connoted that kind of linguistic feeling. So I'm saying shit like afnaytu amri للقراءة والرواية قراءة or whatever, in Arabic, and like just like trying to impress with the most flowery. Arabic is Arabic when spoken at like a category 4 and beyond level. It's very flowery. It's very beautiful, poetic. It's very full of bullshit, really. Like if you ever watch like if you ever watch a talk show in Arabic, like these guys are like just beating around the bush with the most poetic and beautiful expressions in terms of phrases, like about whatever the hell they're talking about. But like, and that was my kind of vibe, being like, I'd been an aspiring poet by that time. I was still writing poetry when I was there. Actually, I wrote so much poetry when I was in the military, or I was in the army during these years, and like the hope was to kind of either publish a book by the time I was out or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, like I was, to go back to the OPI part of the story. By the time I got the OPI, I know how to speak at a high level, but like Michael Jackson just died, and like to introduce that into the context of the OPI, they give you the run-of-the-mill questions to start, like how do you get to the mall? You got to explain like the directions to the mall, which is kind of like unnerving a little bit. Like doing like simple shit like giving directions is oddly kind of like difficult. Like once you get used to like talking about like really cool shit, you're like, oh shit, how do I explain to someone how to tie your shoes in Arabic? Like, but you go through like the run-of-the-mill like intro questions, and then by the time like they get to like the hard question, I was expecting like, yeah, let's talk about nuclear proliferation in Arabic. And this motherfucker asked me, he asked me how is it phrased in Arabic? Al Malik al Pope Mowata, or wait. Died, speak Mowata al Malik al Pope. Yeah, whatever. He asked me about like the king of pop dying, and I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I've spent a year and a half, like, well, not the whole year and a half. First, like I said, first couple of months I was just I was boozing. I was a wino, essentially. But I spent a long time trying to get to a level of like talking about serious shit, and you're asking me about Michael Jackson dying. Like, what the get the fuck? And I'm stumbling. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I like Thriller. I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to say? Like, and then like, so like that made them kind of be like, oh, he's not really at this high level. And it's like, no, man. Like, I just wasn't ready to talk about this because like this is not. We don't talk about Al Malakal Pop, the king of pop, or like I don't know. We just like it just threw me off. This is new. This is new for me. But I passed, and then like went on a cool journey with my buddy Tyler Granholm to Colorado. Underage drank there, some Coors Lights. Went on a couple runs where I felt like my heart was going to explode because that altitude's so high. Then like traveled down to Texas towards Goodfellow Air Force Base where the crypto school is, and drove stick for the first time. Drove his truck, which was stick, which I don't know why, but drove that through the flat plains or whatever of Texas, which was pretty dope. I wonder if I got to drive through Oklahoma or he drove. But anyways, we studied or I don't know. The crypto school is weird. The Arabic course is like the Arabic basic crypto course is like 4 months, and man, it's a weird course because it's like you're wearing headphones and you're listening to traffic. You're supposed to like type what you translate in like short coded or shorthand kind of expressions of Arabic, and it wasn't that crazy. It was kind of like you went to work, kind of, not instead of like it was still kind of classroom kind of setting, but we're going to the SCIF, which is like I forget what SCIF stands for, Sensitive Compartmented Intelligence Facility, whatever. So yeah, we're doing that. It wasn't too crazy, except for like the portion with the numbers. I feel like there was like I think I failed the numbers test, and I was like, if I lose this fucking job just because I can't translate these numbers, which they're yelling these numbers fast. If I fail this job, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it's gonna be bad. It's not gonna be bad. I was like 19 or 20. I can't do shit. It's the army. It's the government. What can I do? They'll put me in jail or something. But like, actually, the hardest part was the Iraqi part. Like, because we're part of GWAT in Iraq, the Iraq OIF, and Iraq was a focal point of why we had that job. The last portion of that course was like dedicated to listening to Iraqi comms, just being a Fed, just listening to Iraqi terrorists talk about crazy shit. Actually, that was concerned with Iraqi like militia guys and terrorists that we were translating, and it was just so crazy because it's like we spent a year and a half learning. Oh yeah, here's the context behind why that's weird and why that was difficult. So we spent a year and a half studying modern standard Arabic, or Al-Fusha, which is like Quranic Arabic, or for like a good metaphor that we always use is it's like Shakespearean English to regular, American idiolects of English, or something like that. Like it's just kind of like no one in the 22 or 3 countries that speak Arabic actually speak this in the street. Most people don't understand it because they're not that highly educated. Highly educated in the sense of like they've got a college degree. Although most of the newspapers Al-Fusha is used. Al Jazeera, they all speak in Al-Fusha. Of course, there's a lot of other media outlets that will speak in some kind of dialect, or use some kind of dialect. But when you hear Iraqi or any of the dialects, you're like, this is not Arabic compared to Fusha. You spend that long studying Arabic, yeah, you're like, what the hell is this? It sounds like Russian compared to like what you have been learning. You know, Hosh, what was Shlonik, Shlonich. You know, it's just funny. But yeah, we had to like essentially that last portion of that chorus. You're listening to Iraqi, but and then yeah, after that course, some of us stayed for an extra 2 month Iraqi dialect course, which was half classroom environment, which was pretty nice. And then like by the end of that, was that we had to write a long ass paper in Arabic, I believe, which like classic ADHD shit. I think I didn't do it until that weekend. Literally, I think it was due on a Monday. That Friday, I was just like in game mode, just like drinking Red Bulls or whatever, like just hacking away, not going out to drink, because I think I just turned 21 at the end of the right before that course, and so I could legally go out and drink. But yeah, like that Iraqi dialect course is pretty cool. First half in a classroom environment. Second half, pretty much doing like a crypto linguist job, wearing the cans, listening to traffic, you know, listening to Iraqis use their code words for bombs and whatever the fuck. Pretty crazy. I actually listened to it, and no one noticed it. I don't know. There was this one, like, if anyone's watches this, if I actually put this up and like anyone's watching this and has been through the same shit and went through that course, there was this one recording of a guy saying, like, I forget what the conversation was, but like he was talking to like I think one of the head guys, or maybe it was the head guy of like some organization, I forget, maybe Al Qaeda of Iraq, but like this guy was saying Thuban, and like yeah, Thuban is like, this might be fucked up, but you know, Thuban was like is like the word for fly, which was the word for which is I guess how they express like drones. So yeah, this is fucked up, but you know, for young military me, it was pretty crazy because you actually hear the drone. Yeah, it's gonna be highly problematic, but it's just how things go, and I'm not proud of listening to it, but you know, it was pretty fucking wild to hear like a guy get fucking murked by a drone, like I guess missile or whatever, and then like no one. I remember like in the skiff, hearing that because we were all listening to the same transcripts or whatever. Same cuts, and like no one like reacted the way I felt. I was like, yo, did y'all hear this shit? This dude just got murked. You know, this and everyone's like, what? You know, like again, no, I'm not laughing at the death. If what sounded like a death. You know. But you know, if a dude heard a transmission of me getting fucking blown up by a fucking drone and he laughed, I'd applaud him like that, and it sounded just like the way he said it. Like, yeah, I would be like, hell yeah, laugh at my death. Like that shit's funny. But I mean, this is probably just fucked up military humor. Or just fucked up personality humor. I don't know. But yeah, finished that Iraqi dialect course, and I had put in my packet to go to Special Forces. So I got orders to go to 5th Special Forces Group in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Yay! Fort Campbell, Kentucky, but it's a huge base. It was, at least when I was there, the 3rd largest base think it probably still is, of course. It's both the bases in both Kentucky and Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee, and like Clansville, fucking Kentucky. Yeah, I put in a packet to go to special operations special operations, but specifically to a special forces group. Which is funny because it's the dumb. It's kind of funny. Like originally, when you're going through this pipeline, they're heavily recruiting for all these cool guy schools or cool guy places. Like, as special forces is doing recruiting. Like I remember the first time I went to a recruitment thing. Like I went to a special forces thing at language school, and like they've got like a PowerPoint with like a guy with a beard, and I'm like, look, yeah, I'm gonna be in the desert with a beard, probably with a dish dash of blending in, speaking Arabic. Hell yeah, I'm gonna be a spy. Which fast forward later on, no, I was at like I couldn't grow a beard. They didn't let me grow a beard in Iraq. It was fucking dumb as fuck. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I originally, you're going through all these fucking cool meetings, or I don't know what the word. I don't know. A guy comes and is like, "Hey, you want to be really cool as fuck?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, I want to be really cool as fuck." You want to jump out of planes? Fuck yeah, I want to jump out of planes. You want to like do super secret shit? Hell yeah, I want to do super secret cool shit. So like. Yeah, like even this one, I went to this one in the skiff while I was at Goodfellow Air Force Base. That was like, this is like a James, like literally like a Jason Bourne type of like, hey, you'll be expected to fly a plane, go into a country, collect data, come back. No, it's like, and you're just, I'm like a 19-year-old kid, like, is this for real? Like, I don't know if I should be in this. Like, should I be in this meeting? I don't think I should be in this meeting. Like, I don't think I should. But I would like to be cool. But yeah, like I actually when I got to Goodfellow Air Force Base, for some reason I think I went to a Ranger one for Ranger Regiment, or like I can't remember, or maybe there's this Ranger around and he was talking to us. I can't remember, but I was like, you know what? I want to be a Ranger. I want to go to Ranger Regiment. I want to go through what's called RASP. I think it used to be called RIP, like Ranger Indoctrination Program. Indoctrinated. Then it became RASP, Ranger Assessment Selection Program. They just added on more fucking weeks or whatever of it, so that you could be hella tough or whatever. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go through RASP. I'm gonna get my fucking tan beret. I'm gonna be a Ranger. I'm gonna do signals intelligence over there. And then like, this is the dumbest reason why I didn't go, but like I remember hearing about like swim portion of like RASP, and I was like, not the best swimmer like at all at the time. And this just sounds dumb because it makes it I don't know, it just sounds dumb. I was like, there, unfortunately, and this is kind of like what was what's our job, SOD-A's, Special Operations Team Alpha, that gave us kind of a bad rep because we didn't have a assessment and selection in place before you go there, like RASP does for the whole regiment, or like Green Berets, or long tabbers, whatever you want to call them, have for getting their Green Beret. Like they go through selection. Come here, buddy. They have their selection and then the whole Q course or the assessment or whatever, for like, the whole pipeline's like 2 years. So like SOD-A's, my job didn't have like a real like rigorous kind of like selection program. Even though I went through one out in Colorado in the mountains. It was like 3 weeks. We called it was like a whole bunch of SOD-A's from different special forces groups. We came there. It was like one of the first iterations of it, and I'd already gone to Iraq and like done my job and like been heavily trained on my job and airborne school and all that shit. So I was just kind of like part of like the vetting crew which I got through it even though I pissed off the instructors, including the head guy was like this fucking tier 1, fucking like, like grandfather of Jason Bourne type guy or whatever. Yeah, I went through that later on. It was in place, but like when you get to, when you get to Special Forces, and you get to your unit, which I was at 2nd Battalion, you're expected to like be physically fit at a higher level than like a regular fucking crypto guy. Like, your 2 mile time, your push-ups, everything, and everyone's lifting weights. Like everyone's getting jacked or whatever. Mostly everyone. But like, there's definitely a culture of fitness and like as well as competency and skill that you want there, that they strive for, or you can get booted out. Which I'd been like, which is crazy. This whole time throughout this pipeline, I'm flat-footed, like never really athletic. I was a skateboarder in high school. That was my athleticism, skating for like hours a day, but practicing tricks. But they didn't have a swim test to get to a Special Forces group, so I was like, I'm going to put my packet in for SF group, which sounds whack as fuck, and it sounds silly and whatever and unserious, but whatever. Still very cool. When I got to group, my battalion had already left for the rotation to Iraq at the time, and me and my buddy Patches went to like essentially our first special operations SIGINT course called SOCO, which is the most craziest experience ever. Because like day 1 you have to take like 100 question exam on shit we did not know at all. Because all the SIGINT shit we did was not true, like real like spy shit, SIGINT shit. Like essentially we had to study like RF engineering. We're studying GSM theory, CMA theory, wave propagation. I'm watching like videos from like Indian guys on YouTube, like about like, a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think someone in the army should be knowing about how to find people, essentially, or how to use, or certain. I still feel weird talking about it, even though I've kind of talked about it, but like, I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about it later on, but took this long exam. Day 1, passed it. Me and my buddy passed it, which was amazing because I was like sweating bullets. Because like we had this random chief at the group headquarters like just sent us off randomly just to get trained before we go to Iraq, which was great because I had a fucking blast. I had a blast, but it was still kind of like, there's a lot of egos, but it was cool as fuck. I went down to the Ranger Regiment, the Military Intelligence Detachment, or MID, or MID, whatever, and I actually did some training. Like I live here in Atlanta, like did some shit here in Atlanta where like we're driving around in fucking like SUVs with tinted windows and going to places like malls and essentially doing like spy training, which was fun. Even though like it's different than when you go into country, or at least in Iraq. Like when I got to Iraq, actually when I finished, I remember we did this huge operation, and then like finished that course, came back, the rear detachment, NCOIC got me and my guy Patches orders to go to Iraq the next week, which was kind of like, it was weird because it was like, oh shit, like, oh crap, I'm actually going to go to Iraq. I'm actually going to go to a combat zone. Which is funny. It's so dumb. Like, it's so stupid. Like, that, like, now I'm, like, finally realizing it. After 2 years in, I'm like, oh my god, this is real. I think somebody said something about being in a convoy or I might be a gunner in a truck, and I was just like, being a gunner in a truck, even though I'm a SIGINTer, like, anyone can be a gunner or man a turret, but no matter what your job is. But it's just like made it more that image of being in a gun turret, like behind a 50 cal gun. It's like, oh shit. But yeah, that next week flew off to Iraq and had a crazy time there. Running around late at night looking for bad guys, which like is pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah, came back and then spent a couple years at that unit, training, going to schools, jumping out of planes, and actually no, I didn't. I was gonna say jumping out of helicopters too, but I don't think I jumped out of a helicopter until when I got out of active duty. I went to the National Guard unit called 20th Group over in Alabama, Fort Payne, Alabama, one of the dustiest towns in the whole world. But I think I jumped out of a Black Hawk there. Yeah, jumped out of a Black Hawk, but it was in Gadsden, Alabama, and that was cool as shit because it was just easy. You just sit in a helicopter. It's actually kind of scary though compared to like an airplane. Or no, it's just kind of funny because like you're dangling your legs out of the helicopter and you go up and you're like, oh, and you just scoop your butt off and you're like, wee. And then but yeah, did that. Did my contract at 5th Group. Went over to 20th Group. Got in trouble. I did this training course. They sent me to Maryland. Maryland, and I was learning LTE, SIGINT shit, and then I got in a little fucking argument, or they call it a fight or something like that, and I knocked a handset or this engineering phone out of someone's hand because I was just pissed and I was on fire. But some fucking colonel or no, some general heard about this apparently for some reason, and all hell broke loose, and I got kicked out. Which isn't funny. It's not funny. It wasn't cute because it was a pretty cool course, and it was pretty fun, and that ended my stint with them. So yeah, I was essentially. It felt like being. It's funny. It really felt like I don't know. It was funny. I had to be essentially pushed out because it was such a huge deal. I don't know why it got turned into a huge deal, this whole altercation, but I essentially got booted out of one of the biggest gangs in the country. Yeah. And then I moved back to Atlanta. And pursued being a freelance photographer for a short while and some other things. And now I'm trying to remember what, oh yeah, I'm supposed to start off with a story about being prescribed meds. I didn't talk about that. So I got to backtrack. Before, since this is maybe a video or a series about ADHD, before getting out of my active duty contract, one of my buddies told me he got prescribed Adderall because he was going back to school. He needed Adderall. He's ADHD. He talked about it with one of the doctors, and they did a whole thing and got him prescriptions. And I was like, I'm definitely ADHD. Although that kind of discourse, that kind of understanding, that kind of psychological understanding or cognitive understanding of the self was not something I was predisposed to. Coming from the black community, coming from being a Haitian, first gen kid, my mom, that's not part of the language of what's wrong with you. Even though my mom used to yell at me why aren't you getting things? She would fucking punch me in the head, why aren't you getting this? And I just don't. I'm not getting it because it's boring to me. Or something, I don't know. Back when I was a fucking kid, even though like I liked learning and I liked reading, I liked reading a lot. Like as a kid, I liked reading. I used to like just have books. Like I remember like in elementary school, I would just have books like inside my desk and reading and not paying attention. I guess I should have been. Hey, I'm filming that like podcast YouTube thing or whatever. I'll be up an hour ago. Okay, I'll wrap it up soon. All right, see you. All right. Okay. Love you. Bye. So yeah, like yeah, I used to love reading as a kid. Like, you know, that was a gateway of kind of, I mean, for anyone, kind of learning about the world, getting a sense of how to kind of, you know, when you have a fucked up childhood, kind of get away, disassociate or get away from the fucked up childhoodness. Yeah, you know, there's something just didn't disconnect. And I don't know if it would also like didn't help. Was like I went to school. I went to school early, so I was a grade ahead for the most part. I don't like really talk about this, but I was at school. I was ahead of school. I don't like to talk about what I'm about to say, but like I was ahead. I was a year ahead, and then like you know like but things started breaking down towards middle school. I started going to summer school. Even though I would ace those classes, it's just like things weren't. I don't know what was going on. By the time I got to sophomore year, I just failed the whole semester. And then I got arrested that year too. And then went to a alternative school. But you know, yeah. So like, and then I went to summer school, got myself back up, but like stuff. You know, my life was crazy in high school. So we're like. Benefit of being a grade ahead, I just equaled out to being like graduating on time at my age, which was fucking a waste of I guess I don't know. My mom put me in kindergarten a year early just because I asked her this I don't know a couple years ago. She was like, "Yeah, you just like to read random stuff." Like I'm like I can't really do her accent that well. She would be like, "You just like to read random stuff. Like you were just reading all these books as like a little kid, or like I don't know, which that doesn't make sense. Like I couldn't be." But I don't know. She put me a grade ahead, but which I don't know. I always felt like I always didn't want. Like, I remember being in school. I didn't want to be a grade ahead because I just always felt awkward around other kids. Like I always felt awkward already. Like I hated like essentially being, and like. But being younger, I'm just kind of like always kind of wondering, like, you know, like, just am I doing things the right way as the kids are doing them? Like, you know, like, and then, but this, whatever. Yeah. So, you know, I didn't have that kind of, I couldn't speak in those kind of discursive tongues about myself, which is annoying because, like, one of my first long-term girlfriends, I'm trying not to say people's names, I feel like, but you know, she was on Adderall, and she'd be like, "I'm ADHD, blah blah blah," and I remember I would talk about it with her, and she would just have this kind of like condescending, kind of like, "Well, no, I'm ADHD, you're not ADHD," and like, you know, like what, you know, like I have a whole phenomenology that. Pretty much like of experiences that like are literally textbook ADHD, but I didn't have prescription, I didn't have that kind of trajectory towards fixing all the problems. And you know, the funniest thing is my mom was like very ADHD. My father, my estranged father, was, you know, he's dead now, but he was a doctor and had a very kind of like sobering. Like whenever I've talked with him or met him, I actually had this kind of like crazy kind of mental breakdown, and like I think I blacked out and hopped on a plane, bought a plane ticket to go see him, and somehow got a rental car, drove up to see my mom. She was living in West Palm Beach, and then drove up to his his like clinic, which was closed, and then called them, and then went to the hospital where he did rounds with. Had a long conversation, and then he just died 3 months later. But yeah, he was a very like he's always presented this non kind of like non neurodivergent, or he was neurotypical, I guess, at least from my distance, and like which I'd imagine so for a doctor. Like this guy actually was a doctor in Haiti, and then had to like apparently my mother said he had to like retake all of his exams or whatever, go through school or whatever in America to be a doctor here, which I guess apparently they did. Whatever kind of institutions here in America didn't respect his like doctorness there and all. Haiti, which sounds like the most fucked up like kind of institutional kind of snobbery or institutional kind of patriotism. I don't know what you'd call it, but institutional, whatever. But like my mother, it's funny. Like I feel whenever I think about my ADHDness, there's definitely parts of me that are very neurotypical presenting for people, and there's definitely things that I've worked on to kind of be more presenting, like present myself as neurotypical, or at least definitely the ADHD definitely has those those other kind of is it comorbidity or congenital kind of like other kind of problems like personality disorders like BPD or whatever, or any kind of bipolarity. I know bipolarity is definitely a big problem for ADHD individuals because their brains just kind of go to 100, and that's the crux of why so many relationships kind of fail with individuals who are like highly ADHD, which for some reason this thought just popped in my head of saying for anyone who doesn't know about ADHD, like I keep running this situation where people who declare themselves ADHD will go like I'm ADD. It's like, well, if you're going to use like psychological discursive language, you should probably know that the distinction between ADD and ADHD like evaporated, like it stopped being a thing since like the 70s or whatever, when the DSM-6 was published, DSM-5 or DSM-6, I think it was DSM-6, where like instead of like that kind of for lack of better words, different types, like ADD versus ADHD. There's kind of different modals or different modes of being ADHD, where like hyperactivity is always at play. It's just not as a phenotypical trait, such as like bouncing around. You have your, I think most everyone who really knows about ADHD knows, there's the bouncing around, hyperactive type of ADHD. There's the inattentive ADHD, which I definitely have a lot, which I think I've just expressed throughout this long rant. And then apparently there's like a mix of both, which is funny. I have this bad trait of retroactively diagnosing famous writers or thinkers like Wittgenstein or Kerouac, and I was doing this like little dig. I think I was like playing around with Gemini, and I was like, could you say that even though like because Kerouac, when he was at the naval boot camp, he got diagnosed with I think it's called dementia praecox, which essentially I think for them was essentially a kind of like schizophrenia, and like Kerouac would say this in I think in his diaries or something like that. But like essentially like what it seemed like if you like look at Kerouac's behavior, like this guy who's able to like punch out huge novels like The Town and the City, or On the Road or whatever, like but like also at the same time be like the most laziest guy ever. Like, you know, I hate that fucking word. I hate hearing lazy. Even though I'm like using it more nowadays, like, because I'm trying to adopt the whole like just will yourself to do things, which is not a bad mindset. But you know, with ADHD, it's kind of very toxic and problematic. But yeah, you know, that's been a habit or a hobby of mine. Is like just looking at figures in the past and going like, yeah, this is definitely like, you know, like Henry Miller. I remember like the first time, I think this was one of the first times I was doing it. I was reading Henry Miller's On Writing book, and I was like, and just the way he was described his behaviors toward writing, or like the normal days, or like his dispositions towards the activity of writing, where he like, you know, I don't know, just that kind of like where you have all these thoughts and everything, but like when you sit down, it's like the most difficult thing ever to do. Like, or just like, I think it's just the way he writes too, and like the way he's very, you know, if you read like Chop of a Cancer, which I didn't really like at first, but then like rereading it, I was like, I'm in love with this book. It's just so fucking wild and crazy. Just like I gotta read the first line, and like, if I keep doing this, I want to like have segments of like reading like either short stories and or like parts of books, but where are you, buddy? Where are you? Oh, there we go. Shout out to Neil Haygood. He's the one I think that put me onto this book a long time ago. I think I'd heard about it from like, you know, Bukowski would talk about Henry Miller, and I think, you know, some of the other kind of individuals from around that era would talk about Henry Miller. But I love this book because it's just so like he's trying to he essentially explicitly talks about himself, like talks about, I guess, the being of the work itself being kind of controversial and kind of like not trying to fit within the lines and be out of step with like how a novel should be kind of constructed and kind of you know, unfold and undulate. But yeah, I got to read this whole part, the last part of like the first page, and I love it because it's like, it is now the fall of my second year in Paris. I was sent here for a reason I have not yet been able to fathom. I have no money, no resources, no hopes. I am the happiest man alive. A year ago, 6 months ago, I thought that I was an artist. I no longer think about it. I am, italicized. Everything that was literature has fallen from me. There are no more books to be written. Thank God. This, then, question mark. This is not a book. This is libel, slander, defamation of character. This is not a book in the ordinary sense of the word. No, this is a prolonged insult. A gob of spit in the face of art. A kick in the pants. This copy has got like, I can't see what the word is anymore, but next word's God, man, destiny, time, love, beauty, what you will. I'm going to sing for you, a little off key perhaps, but I will sing. I will sing while you croak. I will dance over your dirty corpse. To sing, you must first open your mouth. You must have a pair of lungs and a little knowledge of music. It is not necessary to have an accordion or a guitar. The essential thing is to want to sing. This then is a song. I am singing. I fucking love that shit. That's, But yeah, that guy's definitely, you know, wildly fucking, yeah, neurodivergent. Like that's, you know, just I could read any passage out of his book on writing, and it's just like, yeah, this guy's nuts. But you know, and that's just like how I kind of present myself, or I don't present myself. I think one of the funniest things is like, you know, being on social media over the past, you know, actually probably since I've been on social media, but it's much more worse in the eras of, you know, social media 3.0, 2.0, 3.0, you know, make it a corollary with, you know, web 2.0, 3.0, whatever. But like, you know, I've always been kind of like, I'm gonna test out my capabilities of writing. Like any chance, there's a long streak of like, I'm gonna test, especially when I'm like about to put out a new book. I'm usually like to keep myself kind of like sharp. I'm writing crazy passages on Facebook. I'm putting out crazy Twitter threads, and I'm putting, and of course, like there's a huge contextual collapse because there's no context of why the fuck I'm posting these posts. And I think for many people, it's just like, oh, he thinks he's smarter than me, or like there's this weirdness of like, why are you doing this? Like why this is weird, or like, many times, like, as if I had finished my story or kept going with my story, I would have said I eventually went to Georgia State while actually at the same time I started working in the service industry. The only reason I started giggling was because my first service industry job was busing at a restaurant called Bar Taco, and which I've eventually got in trouble, got the boot because I got drunk as hell while writing an essay. This is not funny. This is very degenerate behavior. I do not approve of it, but it's what happens when you're you get this whatever is going on up here. But yeah, I remember I ended up eventually going to Georgia State and studying philosophy. And even though I originally was trying to do something with Arabic and use all my credits from language school, but whatever. After a couple of classes, I think it was my second class, like the chair of the philosophy department emailed me encouraging me to take more classes. And after I really started getting into philosophy, I'd as a writer, doing that already, writing on social media, pursuing writing books, or being in the middle of writing and self-publishing books. I would be writing philosophical, and I've done this for a long time, but writing philosophical actually for a while I was calling them brief discourses on whatever. Brief discourse on, the metaphysics of, objectivity, or the brief discourse on the epistemology of, what's going on during the pandemic, of or epistemic mistrust, or some kind of fucking dumb shit that no one cared about, and everyone's like, why are you posting this? Or essentially, it seems as if I'm trying to, because I'm testing out my use of philosophical jargon, my use of thinking about certain things, trying to even apply formal logic, or at least analytic kind of ways of describing things, which is very counterintuitive, or very it's non-conducive for the normal ways people interact with each other on social media. People try to go speak in the language of the mean, speak dumb as fuck, or whatever. I don't know. People try to express themselves in a way that's not kind of unnerving. And me, meanwhile, I'm writing these long fucking. A lot of times I barely even remember them, because and this may sound like I'm an alcoholic, which I've definitely decreased my drinking tenfold, But, while I was in college, and actually a bartender for much of it, I'd get drunk as hell and just write a whole fucking thing about some random philosophical thing or something. And that was definitely was definitely out of the box, out of step with how you should behave in social settings. But I had the very there's a couple of things. I've always thought, and I still think that epistemically, if you have something you know about, or you're striving to learn about, or you're pursuing, let's say, academically, or in some kind of specialized field, you have, there's a book I only read a little bit, and I stopped in true ADHD ADHD fashion I need to go back to, but epistemic responsibility. I think it's the epistemic responsibility of everyone who knows specialized things or thinks about things in very nuanced ways to kind of educate their neighbors, their peers, their friends. Any chance you can get, share these things, share papers. Like I used to post academic papers on my Facebook account. I think I still have. I think I did that a couple of weeks ago. But like just about things that I think are illuminating about the problems of the day. Unfortunately, they're always unwelcomed. No one gives a fuck about that. But like, it's very out of the ordinary for a person to do. But I've had fun every step of the way because it's who I am. And I think that's kind of like an ADHD thing, or like maybe not an ADHD thing. I think it's maybe one of the kind of personality disorder type things, or kind of like maybe slight spectrumy things that like ADHD individuals or possess, where things that you like, you don't use. Neurodivergent people don't use symbols or signs in the same ways that neurotypical individuals do. And this is kind of part of. I've been wanting to publish things on a reconceptualization of our concept of stupidity, which I've done in some ways. I published a long collection of short stories where the book, the short story at the end of it is called "Bent Over Stupid Till We All Die Anyways." That's the name of the whole collection as well. It's the eponymous short story. As well, I published a collection of poems called "Stupid Poems," and like it's all framed within like the story. It's not even a short story. It's like 100 pages long, and it was the dumbest thing ever to put this at the end of a book or at the end of a collection of short stories. I need to republish that and rewrite it as and reformat it as a full novel. But the story is framed as like a professor, an English professor, who's interested in like these philosophical works to explain certain things through American literature that deal with things like identity, freedom, angst, things like that, and just kind of like the nebulous way that stories can be interpreted or have the way of being interpreted or being fixed, and like that's really what that was the kind of beginning of the thought process of stupidity, but which the kind of thinking of stupidity has been one of the kind of ways of explaining my interpretation of this kind of idea of stupidity is like the creative use of symbols, or just kind of the manifold kind of possibilities of using signs for things. And it's very, it sounds snooty or whatever, but it's coming from a Heideggerian perspective of like how we're thrown into environments, and this I borrowed this from Chomsky's poverty of stimulus argument for language, but like I've always believed that epistemically worlds are, or the world is very epistemically impoverished to a point where everything that we have, whether it's language, sciences, arts, whatever, is created out of like new ways of using signs, whether they're actual symbols that represent parts of language, or they're signs used for formulas, mathematics, for art, for literature, actually in literature as opposed to the actual symbolic features of let's say a piece of literature. Using these things, there's no actual determinateness behind them. Everything's indeterminate. The world is indeterminate. world is the most epistemically impoverished kind of concept. This is why I always put the world in parentheses, or no, quotation marks, or scary quotes or whatever, is because the world is the stupidest or the most creative concept ever that we use for a great purpose and bad purposes, but it's just like it's fugazi, but it's a creative use of symbols or whatever. You might hear me say sign symbol because I always kind of mix the sense. Like, Wittgenstein has a very good. And since I'm talking about Wittgenstein, shout out to my buddy Sammy. He's a professional philosopher off in Europe land, as I always like to say. His PhD dissertation is on Wittgenstein. He's a brilliant scholar, at least from when we've had many conversations about certain things he's working on or certain thoughts I have, and he definitely way better explain Wittgenstein's takes on signs and symbols, and I think part of where my thinking of stupidity is kind of, there are some aspects of Wittgenstein more from uncertainty and parts of philosophical investigations, which I really hope my laptop turning off doesn't affect this video. But it's like the third time, and I'm not smart enough to fix this, or too lazy. But we don't use that word. We don't use lazy to speak about ADHD individuals. They are just mentally tired or dumb as fuck. But yeah. How much time? It's been an hour 36. I only got to number 1 on this original outline of things I was going to talk about out of 5. But I'll say the rest of them, and I use the guest checkbook, like for all you people in the service industry. I've been using that, like, here's this manuscript that I completely forgot, or not forgot, I just kind of dropped, in, of course in typical ADHD fashion, this manuscript for this work I call Revolt, which is very Dostoevskian, but I think this is the first thing. No, actually, this is not the first thing I began writing. Literature or whatever, something on. I think I wrote this like story on my Medium. So like, my look at the cut. Got a new cut. I was looking like a fucking bum. I was looking like a bum for fucking days. I was looking like that shit clean though. That shit clean though. Like I got. My shit clean though. Yeah, my shit clean though, cuz. Hey, my shit looking kinda clean though, man. I got a little Drakey vibe or something like that, Hey Crody, look at me, look at my cut, Hey. Yeah, so like, number 2, thinking philosophically / phenomenologically about the existence of ADHD. 1, assuming its existence. So like in kind of like a way of rigorously kind of engaging with any kind of ontological claims, or like any kind of, I guess like, this is the metaphysics of it, I guess, I don't want to say metaphysics, I'd rather say the ontology of a phenomenon like a mental or cognitive disorder, or status such as neurodivergency or ADHD. One productive way of thinking about this, or thinking about it philosophically, is first assuming its existence. Like, even if you don't believe in ADHD, which is unfortunate, but I get it. I get it because of the weirdness of ADHD, or like a cognitive mental disorder like this where like it's sociogenetic disorder, where like your social environments and environments have a big play, but also genetics have a big play. So that kind of hybrid nature of it is confusing to people. It's like, okay, you can affect ADHD or whatever by like sleeping better, eating better, having better diet, sleeping better, like having better routines, but like whatever. One, assuming its existence. So like, you want to assume its existence. Two, uncover what grounds its existence. So that just means what grounds the existence of a phenomenon. So something like, I would say something that would ground the existence. Something grounding. Oh yeah, I'd have to explain grounding. Which grounding is kind of like, it's like what causes something to happen, but it's not. It doesn't have a causal relationship like that. Like like I could say, this broke because I threw it on the ground. That's a causal relation, but instead, it's something that I guess, for lack of better words, and any philosophers out there who would actually see this, if anyone does see this, it's what what is at play that allows for the phenomenon to arise. So I would say kind of concrete things within the world, which, I may be butchering this highly. This has been a minute since I've thought about it, but like, essentially what is in the world, or a world, that kind of concretely is at play. And so like, I guess one way of expressing this about ADHD would be like, what grounds the existence of ADHD, or what grounds the appearance of it. Is like, things like an individual's kind of inattentiveness, or their phenotypal traits of being hyperactive, my brain's not working that well, and I really want a beer. But things that ground, like for stupidity, I've always said things that ground stupidity are just Actually, I gotta go back to the drawing board because my brain's not working right now. But I have a whole characterization of what grounds stupidity, and there's definitely I could definitely go all wax poetic about what grounds ADHD or just neurodivergency. But like whatever. 3, identifying, and this may be a bad characterization of how to think or philosophically or phenomenologically about an issue. But this is kind of like what I just kind of haphazardly wrote down. But like 3, identifying robust characterizations of its existence. So like, and like I guess robustness is kind of, I'm taking that from like I guess a philosophy of science kind of context of like what are characterizations that like make it real, really. Like if you were taking a large data set of like if you were observing a large data set of, let's say, individuals who have ADHD, observing them or conducting whatever kind of interviews or whatever, what characteristics could rigorously describe the phenomena, the group as a whole, that you could say like, these individuals have ADHD, especially if like there's many features which are different from person to person. Which ADHD right now, at least the last time I was reading through something, is like it's very heterogeneous. There's various types of scales and kind of gradations, I guess, of ADHD for individuals. Which is why I think this has been a finding throughout the kind of crises in psychology, of like going like, of I guess characterizing the phenomenon and the kind of disorder of ADHD, because it's not as like clear cut as it used to be, which was like, if your kid or whatever kind of individual just acts up, or is like constantly moving around, that's ADHD. Where it's like there's much more nuances now, where like it's I imagine psychologists are worrying about like robust characterizations of ADHD. So like this is when I say this is kind of what I had, why I wrote it down for thinking philosophically about ADHD is identifying robust characterizations of its existence. I don't that explained anything, but maybe if I keep doing these videos, I'll try to get help or do some more research or explicitly write down the things to talk about that kind of make the point clearer. But for reductio ad absurdum, so trying to, in this, the reductio ad absurdum is a logical proofing method. So anyone who's taken a formal logic class or whatever, like for proving the, I guess if you want to prove the validity or prove the invalidity of a theorem, you can do a reductio ad absurdum, which you usually just kind of assume that if you assume that the conclusion or the theorem is false, then you should, let's say, if it's a true theorem, you should arrive at a paradox or a logical contradiction by the end of the proofing mechanism, really, where shit doesn't make sense. Like you have like not P and P, something like that, or something, but using, I guess, reductio ad absurdum to kind of prove, I guess what I meant when I wrote that was like doing some kind of a way of proving the existence of ADHD by showing, like, okay, if it doesn't exist, then what happens? Like, and for me, I imagine, and I kind of expect that you can have some logical inconsistencies in the way you would explain or kind of think about certain behaviors, or certain behaviors of individuals. Anyways, 3. Kantian transcendental treatment of the conditions that must be in place for the possibility of the existence of ADHD. The method being a kind of Heideggerian phenomenology of the world's. Wait, hold on. Let me look back. This is I'm using jargon here, but like I'm saying Kantian transcendental treatment because I'm saying, if you read the Critique of Pure Reason, he's talking about, he's trying to set up philosophy and metaphysics in a new platform or a new kind of rigor. He's saying he's looking at the he's looking at he's got like sections of the book called the Transcendental Aesthetic and the Transcendental Logic, where he's trying to figure out what must be in place for what conditions should be in place for the possibility of, I guess, knowledge and existence, experience for the possibility of experience, and for him it's that space and time or pure a priori forms of the mind, wherein the categories of the mind work with experiences to kind of that's what happens when, as he says, we cognize things. We have the active, we have the experience, and then we have the concepts, which are using categories to kind of pretty much capture and organize things that we see within the world and within the forms of space, which he believes aren't out in the world in your time, which are out in the world, but they're part of. They're part of the wiring of our brain, that we see things in time, that things have temporal kind of consistency or coherency, and things have spatial kind of coherency and kind of depth or whatever, extension or whatever. And I'm saying this, I guess, here for ADHD, what must be in place for ADHD to kind of, what are the conditions for something like ADHD to even appear? And I think, and I say the method being the Heideggerian phenomenology, but really what I'm kind of getting toward is, I guess, a phenomenological kind of description of things like, capitalism, the work week, kind of these obstacles that are like what allows for the discourse of ADHD to even be a thing. I guess it's kind of like maybe related to. I guess it's in a sense related to the last one. For the impact of the replication crises in psychology on ADHD research. So like how things have been fucked up by like psychologists doing a bad job, you know, which is not I can't say they're doing a bad job. I would probably take Thomas Kuhn's kind of take from the shit. All right, 5 AI as a framework and LLMs as a metaphor. I gotta go eat dinner or I'll be murdered. Peace, guys. Hopefully this was fun for you guys. Till next time.